It is indeed. Since I was, I don't know, maybe 6 years old. I remember I was starting accordion lessons at that time because of that was the big thing. There were people who'd go door to door and they'd sign kids up for music lessons, and they had an accordion with them. I don't know if that was just the big thing at the time or what. Maybe it's because it's Hamilton, so they pulled out this instrument, and when he played it, I noticed the bellows, and it reminded me of the coyote getting hit by a boulder in the cartoons. And I said, I have to play that. That's it. That's the thing. I must own that. And so they signed me up, and I used to have these visions as I was practicing of, there was a spotlight on me, when I was playing the accordion. It was the 80s, and so I switched to synthesizers and then took piano lessons from there, and then went to music school. So, yeah, it's always been part of my life. It's funny, I'm Jewish, and so, I had a bar mitzvah at 13 years old, and people gave us money and whatever else, and so I had a choice at that point. I was either going to get a synthesizer or a go-kart, and I always wonder what would have happened had I gotten the go-kart. I might have become a race car driver or something. It's a totally different world. But here I am now.
Oh, really
Yeah, so it's been music right from the get-go.
And what's the best part about your job that you like?
That it's not a job. That's the best part of it, is that, what do you do for a living? You practice, and you go out there and you play gigs. People tell you how great you are, and then you go home. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it is work. Especially these days, to make a living in the music business, you have to be able to. We were talking about wearing different hats before we started shooting. That's exactly it. You've got to do what you have to do. And a lot of people teach. I don't. I've never taught. But I own a recording studio, and I have a live sound company that I took over a couple of years ago, and I play as well. In the old days, like when I was first getting into the business, there was a producer, and there was an arranger, and there was an engineer, and they were all different people, But now, the guy who owns the studio also is the producer, he's the arranger, he's he's got to be able to do all that stuff. So, I find myself writing arrangements for people, for bringing in string quartets, that kind of thing. So, you're constantly, to keep working, you have to sort of change with the industry,
So would you say that's the most challenging thing about your job? Or is
Staying working? Yes.
Yeah.
That's easily the most challenging thing about the job, is how to stay working,
Right.
But, because the thing is, too, that what we do for a living is a hobby for most people, right? So you get a lot of people who can play, right? So what makes you different from them, right? And a lot of people now, because of computer technology and everything else, can own recording studios in their homes, in their basements, and a lot of people do it as a hobby. So to do it as a living is getting harder and harder, that's for sure.
Did you have any mentors growing up?
I had lots of mentors growing up, actually. I think everything you experience changes you, and so every good teacher, every bad teacher you've ever had, people who you saw along the way. There were teachers who really loved it, really cared about what they were doing. Too often you run into people who do it because teaching makes good money, or they're this or that, or it's steady work or whatever, But I was lucky in that I had a number of teachers that were true teachers. They believed in what they were doing.
So would you have any advice to any student in grade 7 to grade 10 that wants to pick up musician as a career?
Do I have any advice? Yeah.
Where they'd start?
Well, yeah, I think it starts with the instrument, It's so funny, because music has changed so much, with DJ culture and hip-hop, it's... like pop music has changed.
Mm-hmm.
When we were growing up, music was played, and it just isn't anymore. I shouldn't say that. You know, there's all kinds of different music. You know, but for me, it's always been love it first, love the music first.
Mm-hmm.
So when you play with everything you've got, and when you're learning from people, try to understand why this is being done. You know, one of the things when I was practicing, I never understood why we needed to do scales. I never understood why we needed to do this technique stuff. It never made any sense to me, you know. And it wasn't until later that I understood that, you know what, this stuff helps you to get to this stuff. And I think kids need to understand that. And I don't think it's said enough. Yeah, my advice to them is to love it first, to search, to go deep into it, and to find what it is in themselves that makes music, you know, because music comes from deep within you. And I also believe that to understand what makes people happy, you have to understand what makes them unhappy. And so you've got to find your own sadness and your own happiness and all these things. You've got to look for all of that stuff. Be aware of what's happening inside you and around you. You know, this is all part of music, for me anyway, you know.
That's excellent. Why did you choose Hamilton as a place to work?
Interesting question, you know, because I mean, Hamilton has a really big underground scene, but it's not really known for its music per se. And I went to school in Boston, you know, so I could have from there gone anywhere. I came to Hamilton because I knew I was starting with nothing. I didn't even own a 4-track at that time, you know, so.
And so, is there any room for volunteering?
The ones that are around are, you know, they don't have lots of volunteers like they used to. They have a few people, but you know, there are schools and things now for that stuff, and
Right.
It's not. I would suggest going to school for it personally. I was educated in the stuff, and I've found that it's easier. Not easier. I think it's easier to change with things when you've got an education, you know, because you really understand why it does what it does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why does this piece work this way? But I think it's important now, especially with how much has gone on in the industry, you know, to be able to be educated in this stuff if you can. Go to school for it, you know, because you'll learn it faster, you'll make more connections, you'll know it through and through, you know, you'll know the equipment, and you'll know how to change with it, you'll know how to change with the industry, and you'll be on the forefront of it rather than trying to stay up with it all the time, you know. So,
Well, thank you, Jordan.
yeah.
That's a lot of great advice for students.
Oh,
and
well.
We really thank you for meeting with us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you. I'm going to play a waltz for you because it's boring. A simple little tune.